Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and today I'm gonna discuss Stardew Valley, the board game. This is the second printing, which I got a couple years ago, and it sat on my shelf of shame for a while. So I finally decided to go ahead and pull this out and give it a shot. Okay, and let me go ahead and give you my perspective as to where I'm coming from with my review of this. So I have played the video game, but I only played it for a couple hours, and it was both on mobile and on Switch, but I never played past a couple hours. The game didn't really capture me as much as it did other people. I like the idea of it. I just would rather play other types of games personally, but I like the idea of the game a lot, and the atmosphere and the art of it is very chill. So I did appreciate that a lot about it. And in that realm of farming games or Animal Crossing style games, that's the only game of its genre that I've played. I've never played Animal Crossing or anything like that. So what's been my experience so far? So I played this solo, okay, and four times I played. Just with one character, and one time I played uh, controlling two characters, okay, and I've only won a total of two times, okay. So I won using the two-handed characters, or controlling two boards, and I also won once solo, okay. So now let's go ahead and talk a bit about an overview of the game. Okay, so you are gonna control up to four characters. Okay, and you are gonna have grand pass goals. So the setup is pretty variable. So one thing that I want to point out already is how variable the setup is, which adds tons of replayability. But there is grand pass goals. Okay, so in order to win the game, you have to complete four of grand pass goals that are drawn randomly during setup. Okay. So you need to complete all four, and then you need to also complete all six community center renovations. Okay, with which, by the way, there's six types, but each of them has various that can be added during setup. Okay, so the bulletin board has five different ones that you could draw from, that each of them will ask you for different requirements to fulfill it. Okay, so each of the community center rooms will or bundles will ask you for different things, so incredibly variable during setup. Okay, so yeah, you need to complete all four grand pass goals and all six community bundles. Okay, and you're gonna move around the map collecting resources from these seasonal tiles. You're also gonna be fishing, okay, from this fish track. You're gonna go through the season deck, okay. So the season deck acts as your timer, okay. So you're gonna have four seasons to go through. Okay, seasons are made of normally of four cards each. Okay, and there's a pretty substantial deck for each season, which adds tons of replayability. Okay, with variability with that, and yeah, once you reach the end of winter, the game ends. Okay. All right, and you also, when you finish a season, you have to replace the seasonal tiles as well. Okay, so it's like everything grows back. Okay, so you have the three tiles, all right, which they all give you wood, but then you also have these forageable tiles, okay, that will give you different resources. Okay, when you flip them, all right. So you'll also be donating to the museum, all right, which will give you hearts and also making friends from the villagers deck. Okay, so hearts is a pretty important resource here, because in order to reveal the community bundles, which start face down, okay, you don't know which resources you need to collect in order to complete your goals at the beginning, so you need to use hearts, which you collect by making friends or by donating to the museum. So you can make friends by going to this area here with your pawn, and you're gonna donate a resource of some kind to them. And if their birthday happens to be in the same season you're in, or if you give them one of their preferred resources, you get extra hearts. But hearts are pretty precious here, okay? There's also another reason why you might want to get friends, and that's because friends also give you these abilities that trigger when you flip certain season cards, okay? And they can give you pretty good advantages, okay? So typically it's a pretty good idea early on to acquire a couple of friends, not only for their hearts, but also to have some of these abilities. If you don't have any of these abilities, you're gonna miss out on certain season cards, triggering that gift box. Okay, and there's both good and bad things from the season decks. Sometimes you're gonna have crows eating, your crops. Okay, but there's also event cards, which most of them are positive. Okay, so there is a lot of variables in this game, okay, as you can see. So you're gonna have the option of placing your pawn to do the action that's specified on the board and then move around. So you can do two actions in the same on your turn, two actions in the same space, or one action in that space and then move between spaces, okay, and then flip. So you basically collect those tiles just from moving between locations, right? You're gonna also be exploring the mine. So you roll these dice. These dice are used to for the fishing purposes, okay? And they're also used for exploring the mine, all right? And the mine will give you geodes for upgrading your tool, which you pick up at the beginning, okay? So you have a tool that you can, improve, all right, for your profession. And then you also have the profession board that you pick at the beginning, where you're able to gain upgrades for your profession, which will give you advantages and you'll be better at doing things, okay? There's also these bags that come with the game where there's one for fishing, okay? So every time that you fish something out of the fish track, you renew it, you refresh it or refill it with fish from this bag. And then there's also this bag where you draw minerals and artifacts, okay? So when you're instructed to draw either, you just draw a token, and if you were instructed to draw a mineral, you get the mineral side. If you were instructed to draw the artifact side, you pick the artifact side and you put it in your inventory. And as I mentioned, these go to the museum. I mean, you can sell them or give them to friends when you're trying to make friends with villagers, but you can also donate them to the museum for hearts, which again is a pretty important resource. Okay. You also have these Joja tiles that you might randomly draw due to a season card that will block your spaces, and sometimes it'll outright block them, like you're not allowed to fish here, or they'll restrict them, okay? Like when buying seeds for your crops with that one, you can't buy more than one, okay? So this will add some obstacles, and sometimes there'll be dots, and that's fine. That just comes with the with how random the game is. And if you draw one of these and it's a dud, that you're gonna hope that every time you draw one of these, that it's not really gonna interrupt or get in your plans. So this game definitely has many, so there's many things going on here, okay? But yeah, so that's a bit of an overview, all right? So there's no scoring. It's a hard win or lose condition. So that's one of the first things I want to comment on, okay, now that I've given you the overview, all right? So this having the farming theme, many people might expect that it's going to be some kind of very tight efficiency euro, all right? And it really is not, because there's just a lot of luck here. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not fun, okay? And I'll get to that part, all right? But in a second, but there are way too many variables in this game in order to get too attached to a strategy early on. You kind of have to adapt as you go. Now, there's a lot of luck, and it can be good or bad, okay? There's not a whole lot of luck mitigation, but luck can sometimes give you some powerful boons, all right? Sometimes you might draw an item that a combination or at a very opportune time that will really give you an edge, okay, and give you that push that you need in order to complete your objectives. Sometimes you might also flip one of these, okay, and it might give you an artifact or a mineral, which are important for the museum or for certain goals, okay. And sometimes when fishing, you might get a legendary fish, all right, and those sell pretty expensive, and they can be used to complete goals. So there are good aspects of the luck here, okay, and it can feel pretty great when you do get the die roll that you want, or you draw an item or a friend that gives you a a powerful ability, all right. Now, so yeah, now the downside of that though is, yeah, this game is not very strategic per se. I really want to invite you, if you're gonna approach this game, in my opinion, I think that in order to enjoy it, you're gonna have to look at it as a sort of pseudo farming adventure generator, if you will, like a procedurally generated farming adventure. And once I look at it like that, I have been having a good time with this game. Okay, initially, there's a couple of things that threw me off initially. One, when you play with just one character, it might feel a bit punishing, okay, and a bit swingy for sure. But as I played more, I got the nuances of the game. I got better and closer to completing the goals. The game does scale, so goals will require you to collect certain things based on player count. Okay, so one of these crafts rooms bundles might require you to pick up a forageable, okay, which are these tiles, okay. And if you're just one player, you only need to collect one, but if you're two players, you need to collect two. So playing with more than two players doesn't help you in every front. It does help you in some fronts, and I would say that overall, when I played two-handed, I did feel more advantageous, okay. And I did win that game, okay, playing two-handed. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not enjoy, although I did feel like I had a bit more power to mitigate the luck, and I was able to have more options against the amount of luck in the game. I did not enjoy controlling two characters. There's a certain level of coordination that you need here, that it's strange. I am used to controlling multiple characters in many games, but this one, with its worker placement element, which is pretty flexible, by the way, you're able to, when you place a worker, your pawn, to do actions, you can there's a planning phase where you decide what you're about to do, but then when you start taking your actions, you can change your mind. So that that gives you these branches of what you could possibly do. So when you're doing that with multiple professions, I don't know, that kind of gave me a mental load that I'm not used to. And also the fact that certain seasonal cards instruct you to change the player order. So when you add the variable player order to the variable turn element, it makes it a bit tough to plan a turn. And I did not enjoy the mental load of that, so I went back to just playing with one character after that. But if you don't mind the controlling multiple characters, you'll definitely find a much you'll definitely have a better chance, all right, at completing the goals. But again, keep in mind, you do have to, in general, do double everything, okay. You're gonna have to, not every goal though, but a lot of goals will require you to do double everything. So there's a goal that will require you to have a certain amount of buildings, and if you're two players, you're gonna have to make two buildings, have a certain amount of animals in your barn or coop. So you're gonna have to have double the amount of animals. So it does scale in that regard. But I think one of the biggest things in playing with two characters though is the inventory management. This can feel pretty restraining early on, all right? Not having that much room to place your things. This can be, early on, learning how to manage this inventory can be tough. Just having the 6 slots for resources, and then only 2 slots for items, it can feel very restraining, all right? But you kind of you learn how to work with it just controlling one character. But one of the most liberating things for sure was when I controlled 2 characters, having more having more of these inventory spaces for resources helped a lot. Okay, but even then, I think the mental load was not worth it. So yeah, I still personally I just prefer playing this just with one character. All right, a little commentary on the rules. So I did not find this game particularly hard to learn. I think just with one rulebook read, I got it for the most part. There were a couple things that I overlooked initially. One that was very important, for example, which was the fact that you are able to sell things at the end of most seasons. If you draw this icon during the season. During the season card, if you draw a season card and you see this at the end, you're able to just sell whatever you have, any amount of items you want from your backpack, right? But I didn't pick that up initially, and I thought that I had to go to this location in order to sell things every time, and that made it impossible the first time. But for the most part, that there were a couple of other things in there, but for the most part, rulebook's fine. One or just within a couple of reads, you'll be fine. It's a very unique game. There's lots of systems that are connected. Okay, so it wasn't too bad to learn. All right, rulebook. I didn't see any major issues, so I give the rulebook a thumbs up. Okay, so now let's focus a bit more on summarizing the cons and pros. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my cons first. So setup is a bit of a pain. Okay, even with the insert that the game comes with. Okay, which I do appreciate. It really helps a lot. But even with the insert, it takes a bit. It takes a bit to set this up, even when you know what you're doing. Resetting the season deck and the fish track, the seasonal tiles, the goals, your character board, your tool, your profession, all of that is just a pain. Reshuffling the decks it takes a bit. Okay, now once you know what you're doing, I would say it takes about 10 minutes if it's just for you. All right, for solo, about 10 minutes I would say. Okay, so not a fan of how much setup there is with that. The upside of that is how variable the game is. Okay, which some people might see that as a con. Okay, with how variable the game is, no two games will be the same. But yeah, so that I'm not exactly thrilled every time I have to reset this. Okay. Now the other issue I have with this is the scaling and the solo mode. Okay, the pure solo mode. I like the solo. I like the gameplay, but I feel like the solo mode with just one character, I feel like it's missing something. With two characters, I felt that I had a better chance, but I just did not feel like controlling two characters because of the planning and the flow of the game with two characters. I did not enjoy. Now it is playable. I shouldn't use the word perfectly playable. It's playable with one character. But I feel like I'm missing something in there. I think to give you an example, there are a few cards where you're missing out on some effects from having interaction between two players. All right, so that's just one example right there. But being able to divide and conquer and having different professions and all of that, there's definitely something that you're gonna miss out on from just controlling one character. Some of the goals here or combinations can be a bit tough. Okay, the one of the infamous ones is the legendary fish grandpa goal, where you're supposed to just by luck have a legendary fish come out of the fish bag, and sometimes it might just not come out if you're very unlucky. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you fish and rotate the fish track, it might never come out. So there might be some scenarios that are just impossible to win. Okay, it's just the name of the game here with how variable some of these goals are. There are ways of trying to mitigate that based on your profession. Okay, if you pick a fishing profession, that might help. But yeah, there's gonna be some setups here that are gonna be kind of tough to work with from Jump Street. And also another negative is that based on, and I would say especially if you're playing just with one character, based on what goals you draw, there might be things in the game that you'll never get to do. So for example, if exploring the mine is not one of your goals, there's very little reason why you would ever go explore a mine. So it lacks that open-ended element, where you really can't waste actions. Um, you really can't waste actions in this game. Okay, so if you don't have an incentive to go explore the mine, you're not gonna waste a turn ever doing that. Okay, unless there's like a very specific circumstance that might arise later where you need a certain resource from the mine. But for example, this last game that I played, for the last 2 seasons, I completely neglected my crops just because I just didn't have time or money to go plant them. And I was pretty close, as you can see. I was pretty close, and keep in mind that in this game I had horrendous luck. Okay, I had horrendous luck early on. Even then, I was pretty close. I was only one goal away from both. I was only one level away from completing the Explore the Mine, and only a heart away from completing the boiler, or at least revealing the boiler room, bundle. But yeah, so but I had to neglect certain mechanics of the game. Yeah, it doesn't have. I wish that it was a bit more open ended. Like if you had a bit more free time, where you could just go explore the mine for fun or something, but you really can't. You kind of have, if you want to complete the goals, you really have to stay focused, especially if you're only playing with one character. And one other little nitpick is that the tiles were a bit of a nightmare to remove from the tile boards, the cutouts, because they kept ripping. Okay, it really was such a pain. I had to remove them very carefully. They were very poorly cut. So I don't know if in more recent printings they have fixed this, but I hope they have, because that was a pain. None of the tiles that I removed were damaged beyond repair or anything, but I really hope that they sort that out. And the card quality is all right, component wise. I think I'm definitely gonna sleeve this. Haven't gotten around to doing it, but I'm definitely gonna sleeve this. And finally, I think the biggest issue with the game is that it doesn't really match the chill atmosphere from the original. Okay, I know this is supposed to be a relaxing farm game. I'm not saying that it's a bad game. I'll get to my positives in a second, but this a relaxing game, it ain't. Okay, you're gonna be under pressure because you have very little time to accomplish your tasks, and it is a hard win or loss condition. And my motivation to as I play it is to try to complete all of the goals. Okay, so I don't want to meander. I want to get to completing my goals, and you're gonna have some dead turns and it's gonna suck. Okay, but there's also gonna be some powerful effects that you're gonna get from friends and items and things like that. It kind of balances itself for the most part, with the cool powerful effects versus the dud turns. All right, so now I want to mention my positives. Okay, so first I just want to say that I did enjoy this game ultimately. One of the first things I want to point out is how gorgeous this game is. I love the presentation. The art is spectacular. I love the greens and blues. The character art is very cute. I like it. And I did play the game briefly, but I think it does justice to the look of the game. They did not go with the pixelated look, obviously, but it really does translate very well. Okay, so I would say that presentation-wise, and not only the art, the graphic design, the font choice, it's very clear. So 10 out of 10 on that front, no problem there. Okay, gameplay. Now here's where this is the most divisive element. Okay, why some people just bounce this off of this game completely. How variable it is, how sometimes you feel like there's no choices or whatever, could be true in some turns or scenarios. But hear me out. I think that you just have to, if you want to enjoy this game, you have to come at it from a mentality that it's, to me, the way that I look at it, it's almost like a farming adventure, almost, okay? That happens to also be pretty tough. Once I looked at it that way, I have really enjoyed this. And look, there really isn't a game like this in my collection. I can't think of a game that is like this, okay? When I look at it like that, it's very unique, okay? It's like this procedurally generated farming sandboxy situation, okay, that I do enjoy ultimately. Even if I lose, that's fine, okay. I know that some people might be disappointed by how futile it might feel towards the end of the seasons, but conversely, I have read testimonies of people playing this that they think that they're not gonna win, but then they pull it off in the last couple cards of the season. So it is complete. It is perfectly winnable. Okay, but yeah, that luck, it really can be swingy. Okay, between what you draw with the goals and the roll of the dice, it really can be. But I enjoy games like Ameritrash games and games that have this high luck element. And I know that for the deterministic Euro enthusiast, this might be radioactive. I completely understand. I respect that, and I do like those types of more strategic games as well. But when I look at it from this from that angle, I've enjoyed this. My biggest issues that I mentioned earlier, definitely could I think that the biggest issue to me from the stuff that I mentioned, I think, is the setup. The setup, I wish it took a bit less to set this up. It's slightly fiddly, but I can look past the other issues that I mentioned, and I have enjoyed this. And I really appreciate that this is not a beat your own score. There's a hard win condition. Lots of these farming games, it's all about, or Euro games, it's about collecting points. This one isn't. So it's just very unique, and I have enjoyed it, but I would say approach it with caution. Okay, and do your research. That's my take on it. I think this is pretty unique, even from someone who's not necessarily a fan of the ID that much, of the IP that much. And I've been enjoying this. I just love the procedural aspect of this and how variable it is. Love that. It does sacrifice some strategic depth as a result, though. All right, so in conclusion, I would suggest that you avoid this game if you don't like swingy games or games that are very random. This might, give you the impression, because of its farming theme and resource gathering theme, that it's a tightly designed machine. It really isn't. It's extremely random and variable. Okay, it does have a bit of a lengthy setup, and the experience controlling one character, your mileage will vary with it. Some people prefer playing it with two. It's definitely easier playing it with two characters. Controlling it with just one character, there's some elements that you're gonna miss. Okay, now on the upside of that, though, I think that this offers a pretty unique experience, that it still is playable solo, despite some of the elements that are left behind by just picking one character. It's still completely possible to win. Okay, and the no two games will ever be the same with how much variables there are here, between flipping the tiles when gathering resources, the different profession upgrades, what villagers you're gonna meet, the item deck, the epic item deck, the events, the mine map. Okay, so the goals that you're gonna draw early on, which profession you pick, and how the season deck is gonna be structured from the beginning, is gonna be so different every time, and it is gonna be a race. Okay, this is not a relaxing game. Some people might find it relaxing, and I'm not saying that it's stressful. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's stressful, but it definitely is not a relaxing game like how Stardew Valley has that fame. But I think it's still a flawed but enjoyable game. I'll keep this in my collection. Very, very unique title. All right, so I hope that helped you figure out if this title is for you or not. And I want to thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.